Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NACE Starleague. We're here, brand new season for the winter semester. I'm Squid, joined by Danger Taco. We're starting off strong here with Rocket League, and I gotta say, I'm so hyped to be here. More collegiate action, always so fun. Great start to the season here with NACE, and starting with league play, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm joining you right there in your excitement because every single time the semester ends, I'm like, man, such a rush. Can't wait to do it again. And then it's almost like you forget it. I'm in a hibernation period in the winter, and I'm just kind of waiting around, kind of knocking on Discord doors, like, do you have any events coming up? People are like, no, you gotta wait. And then it finally, when I'm just in the fetal position on my bed, crying to my pillow, I realize then, wait, no. NACE is back.
We got Ohio State and Minnesota State Mankato just about ready to go here. And Taco, both of them with a 1-0 record, chance to start off the season strong. I mean, batting 500 is never really that bad. Of course, it's still, a very young season, but you always want to try and get ahead as soon as possible. Try to set yourself apart from the remainder of the masses. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can see out of Ohio State, classic caster thing. I'm looking forward to see. Of course I am. But, some names that I'm not quite so familiar with, so I have high expectations.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to keep those expectations really just even kill for now, as I try to join you there, because I want to make sure that I'm really just embracing this game the most organic way possible, because I have no idea who's going to come out on top, but there's also a chance for these players to make themselves known in the scene and in their division. Round robin play getting back underway. It's Minnesota State, it's Ohio State, battling it out to see who can extend that win streak.
We're going to be seeing Ohio State over there on the orange side, so at least there's something that's relatively consistent. You get those bright primary colors on their end. Desan already down low, trying to get this one to the mid. A nice effort there, but now cleared all the way downfield. This shot on target easily kept outside. Burgess in charge for that one. Shot on either side already here, Taco. Nothing really standing out to me just yet outside of those counters.
And that's a good thing to actually see, is that if nothing stands out, then that means that there's no real glaring issues. And sometimes in the opening game, we talk about it as the game in which you really get to show what you're made of and be able to show off against the other side. But sometimes you can see glaring issues. Uh-oh, the speed is really mismatched. Wow, these rotations are really wide. And sometimes you don't see it up until a miss comes through. No save on that backboard, but Ohio State not quick enough to be able to finish that off on the counter. Here comes Minnesota dunking it through for the opener.
Yep, sometimes you just gotta eat your Wheaties here. They were off to the races, and Burgess was there just in time, but cannot win out on the challenge in front of the goal line there. And, well, that's one way to score goal number one. Ohio State, though, they had a very good look at the net on that first significant offensive drive. Twice now, it's been a counter. The first one was just wide of the target. Second one goes through off a 50-50. Now Burgess cannot put that one inside the uprights. Another quality opportunity. Dead and gone now as they'll drop things down here into the blue corner.
And look at them circling back, making sure they get boost. They don't want to rush things. I really like that approach from Ohio State. The problem is that when you do play that patient game, you got to finish those opportunities. We talk about Burgess with the miss. I don't really think it's a big deal within the first 90 seconds. However, those types of things, I think psychologically can certainly tilt you, and I think that's only going to add if this game remains at a 1-0 scoreline or even ends at this current split between the teams. So I really need Ohio State to give me something more convincing, and that is not it. The giveaway, and Cool is going to put that one through.
This is just a little bit curious to me. You mentioned making the safer play earlier on, but not this time. They got just a little bit too eager to move downfield with that relatively risky play there by Stu. I'm a little bit curious as to what exactly their game plan was with that ball. Obviously, no flame intended, but you've got to start asking these kinds of questions. They were playing the patient play when they got out onto the offense. All right, deep third, that makes sense, but you also got to make sure that you're shoring up on the back end before you move out as well.
And I think plays like that feel fairly innocent in that it's just, a simple pass out, takes my teammate. The issue is if you don't look a little bit farther downfield, the other team can see that coming, and if you telegraph it, if you're just staring at your player and you pass it along, then the other team is going to rush that as soon as you even jump to make that like pass. So obviously, make sure you hide your intentions, make sure everything is a bit more mysterious, can be a crucial way to move down the field. And right now, it seems like Minnesota, I wouldn't necessarily say is getting free goals, but I don't really feel like they're doing anything too dramatic here. They're just playing quick, efficient, and finishing opportunities. But as I say that, Nebud just can't quite get that near post. It's going to go out, but they will continue the attack.
They will for a moment, though. Cools. Bit of a giveaway on that last play. They're going to have to do some damage control now. Demolition should at least give them some leeway. The 1-2 passing play now, outlet into the net here. Saviox for goal number 3, and what a play it is.
We're just doing everything right there. They chip it, go for the demo. The issue is the second man so far back, and with a demo, Desan just spawns in just to watch it sail in. There's nothing they can do about that, even if they got the perfect flip to try to get at it. It's still just too far away, but speaking about perfect, that counterattack, so incredibly beautiful to watch a team pick each other out and then just crank one at the best possible speed to beat out the defense. And right now, Minnesota State making themselves known in game number 1. This looks like a very comfortable game for them.
They've had a lot of success just moving the ball down the field with speed, and it seems like that velocity has been a huge factor for them so far. It's not necessarily them playing extremely fast, though. It's just having the vision and the positioning to be exactly where they need to be when they need to be there. So, gotta give nothing but props to them so far. On the attacking side, once again, just trying to extend this lead as far as possible. We'll get control back here. Cools in the midfield, tackled early by Burgess. I like that aggression at this point. They're going to have to start tearing off the Band-Aid at some point in the game. With 75 seconds to go, you may as well start now.
Yeah, I think tearing off the Band-Aid, good kind of a reference to make within there, as I think we're seeing everyone try and get around the ball, and
yeah, I believe there might have been a slight. Taco, I gotta ask, how long have you been thinking
I'm not really sure. To be honest, this is actually borderline genius. See, what they're doing here is baiting in the other team into a false sense of security. But then, aptly so, the other team actually responds with the same strategy. I mean, we're talking about 200 IQ plays. That is right up there, I would say.
Well, that's the kind of interaction that you get when two teams just immediately get onto the same resonant wavelength. It's just like an absolute brainwave that just goes off. It's almost like an EMP, right? Everybody's brain just shuts off, and they're like, we can't do anything. Because if we do something, then they're going to know exactly what we're doing. And if they do something, we'll know exactly what they're doing. So the optimal play is to do nothing. Jokes aside, though.
It does seem like complicated, and it's like, what could possibly be happening? That seems a little off. No, it's actually a higher level game meta. I mean, not a lot of people would understand it. It takes a fairly high game IQ to comprehend NACE Starleague play.
Yeah, if you don't have at least 5,000 hours in Rocket League, I would honestly advise just avert your eyes from the screen there. Yeah, don't look. It's probably not going to be good for your health. But server definitely did go down, it seems, as we try to get things back underway here. Although, I gotta be honest, it doesn't seem like we were missing out on a really heated game 1 there, of course, with Minnesota State having the 3-0 lead that they did, and Ohio State having some not insignificant difficulties trying to push out and stay out of their defensive half there, Taco.
No, it felt like Ohio State didn't really, I would say difficulties going out into really that next phase or trying to get back into that game. I wouldn't say it was really a struggle for them. What I really noticed was that Minnesota State was connecting in combination, whereas Ohio State, it felt very one-to-one. I'm hitting off the backboard, and then I'm going to kind of hope that someone maybe gets to that, and then I'll rotate back. Instead of Minnesota State, where it felt like every touch was going into a position in which their follow-up was there and ready for it, and predicting that play, I think Ohio State is just kind of adjusting to things. And that's really what game 1s are for, but a couple more games like that, or at least a couple more minutes, at least in game number 2, I don't know if they're really going to hang on, because Minnesota State, they came out the gates ready to play, and it helps that their finishing is on point.
That much is true, and of course, great team chemistry often goes a heck of a lot farther than any sort of skilled individual on any one team. But I will say in that regard, we did actually see a couple of solid-looking individual efforts by the Ohio State offense. In particular, Desan, at the very beginning of the game, managed to fool 2 defenders, almost made it 3, but didn't end up getting that first goal. I think on another instance, I saw Stu driving downfield, making some sort of a fake play, which confused the defense to a reasonable extent, obviously not to a deathly extent, but maybe that's just where their strength lies, trying to get that solo effort in downfield, waste a couple of defenders, and then start your offensive rotation up. It's a relatively simple and fundamentally charged game plan you're likely to see in lots of high-level play, should they have some difficulty in that 50-50, that direct contest game. It's all about playing that secondary from there, and we noticed that it didn't really work out so often, right? It was Minnesota State, as you mentioned, with the transitions downfield. They always found each other. They knew exactly what was happening. So they were ready to play that secondary. They saw exactly what was happening more often than not, and they were able to play that 50-50 pretty well to their advantage.
And I think that's tiny moments like that, they start to build up, and you get a lot of kind of the snowball effect where if you're consistently winning those 50s, if you're keeping your backboard clear, even if it doesn't feel like that translates immediately into offense, it just allows you to be pressed into defense and then immediately press on back. And the key to playing successful offense is being able to extend those offensive stays, being able to lock down the midfield line so it just keeps rebounding through. And I think that's what Minnesota State was doing a lot better of. And at least seeing the names on Ohio State's roster, I mean, Desant is someone who's a very high-ranked player. That is a player that plays a lot with, I would say, the A team within the Ohio State ecosystem and plays with them in scrims or at least in the ranked modes within Rocket League. So I would expect a player like them to be able to step up and kind of be the front man for those attacks. But with this extended break, as we getting everyone back in the lobby to start up, I believe game 2, as we've been informed, that first game, I believe, will be going over to Minnesota with that 3-0 lead. So with a fresh slate, hopefully a server that doesn't use self-destruct super effectively, then we will hopefully then be able to move into game 2 with a refreshed Ohio State, with a kind of a slap in the face, cold water to wake them up and say, oh, I guess this is not going to be a stroll in the park.
Perhaps, perhaps not. We'll have to see what happens here. Game 2 now getting underway here, though, Taco. 5 fresh minutes on the clock here, and Ohio State once again going to be representing the Orange. Thankfully, no changes there. They're looking for a comeback, and they almost found an instant opener right there. A demolition attempt by Stu, but now the counter. Burgess is able to make the clear. Already, the same exact story as Game 1. A quality chance on either side right out of the gate. I mean, that is just par for the course at this point, I think, for the series. Minnesota State with a good pass and play, couldn't quite put it together. They'll put another one here, but it's easily deflected.
It's one of those things that we don't talk about a lot in high-level play, but it happens a lot in terms of, well, before I get to that, another thing that happens a lot in high-level play, everyone kind of looking around, where is the challenge? Desant gets the first, and then both players are underneath the ball. I think they both had a thought maybe the other person had it, but at the end of the day, on the Minnesota half, it's only one player getting on the end of that one. Kulis putting it into the open net, staring at the goalie, waiting for a challenge, and none ended up coming. It's a fast start again for the boys in blue.
I gotta say, yet again, oh my goodness, this number 2 is immediately scored here right off the face-off. They are wasting absolutely no time here. Desant just touched that one out to the side, and there's nobody there, Taco. It seems like the exact same story as the last one I put on the first play. Minnesota State, they forced a 50-50, went out to the mid. Nobody from Ohio State challenged fast enough. They simply weren't out there, and they allowed the goal against. Goal number 2 is pretty much the same story. Desant touched it out to the side. They don't have a backup plan, and they concede a second time there. They finally get back onto the attack here, but it was touched away with relative ease, and Desant could not make that double tap happen. They find themselves trailing 2-0 within the first minute.
So now it's really up to Ohio State to realize, okay, this is slightly getting away from us. Of course, it's a new game, and the series is far from over, but you really need a goal just to be able to remind yourself that you're able to get one through. It can't help that you've come so close a couple times and just hit it off the post or be able to put it high and wide. So I think one goal could steady the nerves, so to speak. So want to see if they can tighten up these rotations and get it past the defense. The pre-jump from Kulis blocking that one, and he's going to reward himself with a nice little goal roller all the way downfield.
3 already. You would think that this is going to be a done deal. What a dunk there, and Kulis is right there for it. And nobody back in the defense yet again here for Ohio State. They are trying to play these challenges in the midfield, but they are simply getting read too hard. Read like a book at this rate. Minnesota State is showing no signs of slowing down here, and Ohio State still looking to strike for the first time. We've seen attempts at demolitions, we've seen attempts at individual plays, we've seen attempts at plays off the backboard. Nothing has worked.
And this is where the nothing works is actually a great kind of apt description, because I feel like that's psychologically where that they have to feel right now, and that everything that they're trying in the game isn't really sufficient. And I think part of it is due to just the chemistry Minnesota is showing, and that is really absent on the side of Iowa State. They might be going for demos, they might be going for passes, but I don't feel like it's a cohesive plan. It feels like everyone's playing on themselves. Honestly, if I didn't know better, this feels like a ranked game from Iowa State, in which everyone's trying to do their best, what they think is right in the moment, but it's not actually formed in a coordinated effort. I think that's really what Ohio State is lacking, where Minnesota, I mean, granted, Minnesota is also rocking matching club tags, and that's half the battle.
Yeah, I mean, that already shows that their chemistry is through the roof, so I'm not really sure if there's anything that Ohio State can do about that. Of course, Stu, the only one missing the OSU tag, but I'll digress on that point for now. They have at least stemmed the bleeding here, starting to get a little bit more of this control here. Out of the blue corner, they do grab that boost as well. Desan with a flick over. Saviox can't really get a nice clear on that. Stu off the post and away, and they're robbed here by the uprights. A great play by Minnesota State on the defense, collapsing on that one immediately, but still Ohio State were that close to striking for the first time in the series.
You know, see the impatience. Hassan has two defenders really driving away from them. Instead of just trying to possess it, get a flick, they just try to throw one on goal. He's save out to the corner. I want more patience on these build-ups. You guys are getting opportunities, but when you do get them, put it by the wayside. That's fine. Just move on to the next opportunity. But when you're just throwing it downfield, hoping for a mistake, it's not going to be the most viable of strategies. Desan's going to try to keep this one high. Nebula, and that will be touched well to the corner, but no follow-up. Saviox actually takes it off of them and then combines their teammates, so even when it looks a little bit uncertain, Minnesota comes away unscathed.
They do, and again, the speed is there for Nebula just in front of Burgess to deny that shot opportunity off the backboard. Always happy to see that, and now we find ourselves in the same situation as in Game 1. 3-0, less than 75. This should... No! Blocked away, Desan! It looked like they were home free with that challenge, but they're denied yet again.
I feel like I'm watching, like, Minnesota put a charm on their goal. It's like, nope, you just can't score on it. Like, everything's hitting off the post. Everything is just barely getting scraped by. We're just trying to break that seal, but still cannot. Saviox with a great save and dribble out. One more bounce, Stu. Affrontation. It's going to be over the bar. Desan gets bumped. Burgess and Stu both looking at each other, but neither of them can get. It just feels like it's going from bad to worse. It's a comedy. I wouldn't even say of errors. It's just they can't get it done. Saviox bumping around, and that's for number 4. Minnesota on quite the tear.
It feels like this was just an improvised play as well. You could see on the back end, the bump came through initially to deny Desan the shot. They got that clearance, and then it was just an improvised play. They just sent whoever was available to the ball, and it worked out for them, culminating with that bump into the goal. For Ohio State, that's got to be pretty devastating for the morale. This one drops down in front. Burgess, puts it off the mark! They had the time, but they couldn't get around the ball to put it inside of the uprights. And yet again, dreams have been crushed here. Saviox, the pass over to Nebula. It doesn't matter at this point. But still, the opportunities continue to fall for Minnesota State and for Ohio State. But one of these teams, and only one, has been capitalizing on the chance.
There's the moment where, as a team, you just got to laugh at it. Just say, wow, this is kind of crazy. How many times we've hit the post, how many times we've hit the bar, how many times that someone has been able to get back and get a crazy save. Like, this team, not lucky. You never want to portray it as, like, we are deserving of a victory. We're not getting it. But just laugh it off, because at the end of the day, it is kind of hilarious just how close it's come. Look at the shot totals that would have come through. Obviously, not talking to you guys, but I personally have told Squid, take a gander at this. Ohio State is out shooting Minnesota there. That is 10 shots. It granted to 7, but it's still an out shooting. And you look at the scoreboard and you're thinking, what's going wrong? At the end of the day, the accuracy you can say, but it just feels like everything is improvisational. It feels like a lot of what Ohio State is trying to just force something out of nothing instead of actually having a plan, looking at those passes, getting some boost steals, and I really need more organization.
Yes, that as well as you talked about the organization, and of course, something you also noted earlier on is they need to stop just tossing the ball at the net. You mentioned, there's a little bit left to be desired here when it comes to controlling the ball, in that Ohio State isn't really making too much of an effort in some instances, right? And it was one of the big strengths that I noted about Game 1 is whenever they, slowed it down and took a very intimate possession of the ball, they could at least make a solid and safe 50-50 somewhere in the offensive zone, and or more often than not, actually, they would actually get a flick over one of the defenders and make it an odd man rush at that point. But sometimes they just kind of like throw it away, and then any opportunity for that is lost.
It can be devastating to be in these situations, especially since, if memory serves, this is technically a perfect sweep in order for Minnesota. So if they close this game out, don't allow any goals, I think this could be completed. However, at the end of the day, Ohio State is not helpless. They're not just being kicked around. They are actually getting a lot of shots, and they are so close to being in. So I think now they're probably just sitting at each other. They didn't ready up, actually, that entire post game just to say, okay, let's just get it done, trust the system, we're out shooting them. That just means we put a couple in. This is an entirely different series.
Of course. And they did have a couple of notable defensive woes, too, particularly on the back end. But, you know, that's an easy fix. So hopefully they've got more in the tank. That was a nice shot by Burgess, who was denied. Desan can't make the play either. And Stu unable to get the dunk here against Cools. Now the rush back the other way. Way up high, Burgess. Just enough contact here, but it looks a little bit dicey. They're going to send 2 players for it. At least the clear is made for now. Minnesota State kept scoreless here past the first 30 seconds.
And that might seem like a very absent, kind of empty compliment, but it's a big thing for Ohio State to just say, hey, this is actually a pretty even game in the midfield. Let's go, because before Minnesota, they're not getting a lot of overall shots, but I would say the flow of the game was definitely flowing in their favor. So Ohio State getting some nice, conscientious plays like that. Look at the setup, just tapping one off and nailing the goalie out of the way.
And you can see the respect here that Desan is commanding. Saviox knows that pass could come to the mid. So does Cools. They cannot dive at that play. And by the time it's too late, Desan has already gotten Minnesota State to fall right into their hands. They could have passed that one out to the mid, but instead they go for that bump. And they get the defender immediately out of the way. There's not enough time for Cools to close the gap on that close shot, and they score. A beautifully put together play there. The communication in line as well. They've got the lead for the first time after having scored the first time here, Taco. So already some major improvement.
Yeah, and this is definitely the play style you want if you are to really put together a reverse sweep to be able to come away with this game. So, of course, they're not going to want to get too complacent. Not that they are, but it's nice to see that they are peaking on some of these touches. Stu over the top. Get it done.
Jeez. Okay. All right. I see you. And again, the control. We talked about it so many times. The control has been good for Ohio State. They got that first touch, forced one defender back in the rotation, beat the second man. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that last player could have still made that save, and Ohio State would have been in a very good spot. Getting that goal was just the icing on top. Desan, though, not able to touch this one out. It's a little bit of an unfortunate kickoff scenario.
And this is a delicate stage for Ohio State right now. They have the lead, playing well, and even the goal. It shakes your confidence a bit, maybe saying, okay, I guess we're not fully back. We got to be careful, but just trust in the system. You're playing well. You're relying on good mechanics. You're taking space with efficient boost usage. And to be honest, with all that combined, I think you're definitely back in this series. So no problem. Still got the lead. Now you just got to protect it, Stu. Nearly his last back getting beat, but we'll be able to ultimately get the save.
I believe I saw a bump there on the back wall. The physical play perhaps becoming more and more integral to the Ohio State rotation. As time passes, we shall see. There still is loads of time left. As you mentioned, they have to protect this lead, and I think protect is the only accurate descriptor that you can give, but lots of control here for Saviox. Tossed down in the mid. There's nobody at the challenge that, and they almost get it through. Desan has to make a delayed touch off the backboard to get that one away. And not exactly my favorite look for a defense being as passive as they were, but they did get it out, so I guess I can't complain too much.
Yeah, if it looks weird and works, then I guess it's not too bad of a big of a deal to really be able to see the defense be a bit slow. However, it's nice to have a defense be present. Ball off the sideline and nobody home for that one. Stu just going to put one into a wide open net.
The Cools were just following that one downfield, I think in anticipation that their last player would be back, but unfortunately, yeah, they were out for lunch, it seemed. So a bit of an uncharacteristic play there from Minnesota State. Perhaps they have a shaken faith in their ability to take this series. But with Ohio State now leading, they're looking for another one. Quality pass here. But Desan can't quite beat out the last player on defense. Solo effort here from Stu now. That flick doesn't go anywhere. still results in a neutral 50-50, and they are right on top of it. They've been getting beat in the secondary so many times, they don't allow it there. A bit of an aggressive play on that one. All players in the offensive quarter, that could have easily been a counterattack, and Minnesota State are going to try and capitalize on their possession.
I feel like I blacked out and we're watching a different series, you know? Like,
yeah,
it feels so different. It's shocking. Like, I understand there's between-game adjustments, but this is a complete overhaul of how they've been playing. Ohio State looks way more confident. They're getting back in time. The rotations are there. And to be honest, it's refreshing to see because I was very concerned going through. It's like, this is not as competitive as I thought it would be. But no, this is what it should have been game number 1. I guess it just really took a little bit of a boot-up period. Like, you're seeing the loading bar slowly go across the screen for Ohio State. And now, finally, that update is through. They've understood what they need to do, and they're executing.
You know, I'm simultaneously hoping and not hoping that this is the case, but you do know that, of course, some teams do actually omit warm-ups prior to their games. So I'm not saying anything on it, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
It's a thing that happens.
Yep, teams do that. You know, maybe one of those just got finished with their homework for the day. They are college students after all, but they are looking a heck of a lot better here in Game 3. I have no reason to believe they're going to be dropping this one, although Minnesota State has had a couple of issues, particularly that open net leading to goal number 3 for Ohio State. I do think this has been a massive improvement here for the Buckeyes more than anything.
And it's also getting, I was going to say into creative avenues. Burgess was set up for a nice spike off the ceiling for their second, but they didn't quite get it. So I would say the execution is there, but not fully. This could have gotten really out of hand if all of Ohio State's plans had come to fruition. Even when they double commit, it seems to be working out. Deshaun nearly tapping it past the entire defense, but luckily for Minnesota, no one there in the follow. For the counter, Kula's going to get shut down. Nebula try to slowly advance things up, and they're not going to be able to get that touch. So it feels like I'm watching Space Jam with the Monstars. They have dominant. It's like this kind of, you know, like the dominant team suddenly just can't quite grab stuff. They're missing some of the touches. And I think this is definitely a wake-up call for Minnesota that maybe they thought they were on the way to a clean sweep. But who knows? It's not going to be a clean sweep, but it is certainly going to be a close game regardless. As soon as I start trash-talking them, they bring it within 1.
Yeah, I mean, they bring up the demo play, and now we're on an instant reset. This could change things. Massive momentum swing, potentially. 7 seconds is almost an eternity in Rocket League. That's more than enough time to get all of your players boosted up. This face-off will go their way. Cools with control. Bit of a double commit there, though. That's going to be bad for Minnesota State's chances, and they will be denied. Stu has absolute control over that ball and will send their team into Game 4.
Yeah, this is one of those situations, at least for me, when you have that 1-goal lead and the other team's slowly been coming back and you're thinking, okay, it's fine, we just got to last 6 more seconds or whatever. Take a kickoff, it rolls to the sidewall, you're like, that's not ideal. And someone takes an air dribble, you're like, not like this. No, please, I beg of you. And they did get that save off. So clutch defending, and they're going to have to do a lot more of that because that is only the first step here, Squid. They have to mount the reverse sweep, and they have to be wondering, man, where was this 2 games ago? It can be such a tough realization to realize that you definitely were getting punched in the mouth, kind of sucker punched in the beginning, and now it's finally competitive, but you have no more lives left.
Well, Taka, you mentioned the Herculean effort that is getting a reverse sweep, but I have to say, you know, from a player's standpoint, this is what I always say. You might already know it, but I'm going to say it anyways, is all you got to do is win a game of Rocket League and then win one more. Like, that's it. If you can separate that mindset from the reality of the situation and just, you know, take that mindset into Game 4, then you are going to be very, very well off because you just won. You already just won. All you got to do is win 2 more in a row. I mean, it's really not that challenging. People do that in ranked all the time.
I was just about to reference that. I was like, that's the exact mindset you have in ranked. It's like, oh, I've only 2 wins away from that new rank or something, and that doesn't even feel that daunting. So it's basically, it's basically the same thing. You're just partying up with your bros, playing ranked against some other partied up bros, and oh my goodness, some of the bros. So any bro touched that on Minnesota, and luckily the 4th defender heard the call and was able to get that one out. But nearly a banner start for the I was gonna say the Scarlet Knights. I'm like, no, it is a Scarlet team, but this is very much the Buckeyes.
Yes. Well, I gotta be honest with you. I'm kind of wondering now, you know, we always call them players or like team members. What if we just call them bros? That would be interesting. Bit of an interesting change of pace.
Not a single bro in the net. Oh.
Not a single bro in the net. Although, on that point, I did just see a little bit of a rotation that reminded me of a situation that I don't think there was anything particularly wrong happening on the field, but something I noted from the last game, Ohio State, on 2 occasions in particular. Ooh, boy, this one is getting a little bit dicey. Okay, we'll get it out. But on a couple of occasions, I did notice they had all three of their formation in the attacking, like, sixth at that point. I mean, they were all out there in the corner, or like on the back wall, and they managed to scrape away still with some possession. And of course, every situation is situational, contextual, I should say. Oh, Stu, what is that double? What is that double? Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm trying to have like a philosophical thing happening over here, and Stu just slams this one off the bar and in.
I mean, I don't know what their major is, but that's all calculated. That felt very math major to me. Just putting that all the way up the bar and then free-flipping functionally into the double tap. That's perfection. That shot, though, is nearly doubling up there.
Functionally.
Right off the kickoff. Yeah, functionally, it is essentially
right.
just a pre-flip, even though you're just landing from your initial shot. Missed as it may be. Burgess also going to miss one, but tactically, Hassan not able to get up for it. So I do like how Ohio State said all three of them are just pressed up on offense, but there's also intermittently all these plays where they're more than comfortable just sitting back, waiting for the attack and absorbing pressure and then sending it right through. This is a good mature response to Ohio State. They're not panicking, they trust in the game plan, and they're just trying to carry that forward.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, like I was saying, every different situation has its own context. So you can't really say that they are making a bad decision by all being up, as I mentioned, but not every team will do that. Oh my, what? Does that just go in?
I 50.
I think both players were trying to play some mind games on this one. Either one could have touched it, but it just goes right on in.
Savvyax, you got to feel for it because you're thinking to yourself, all right, I have to hit this in the corner, but I can't do that because he'll dunk me. Okay, so maybe if I 50 it, but
Protractor.
I'll probably win that because I'm coming from an angle. Maybe if I angle it to the other corner, and then by then it's already in. It's like there's nothing I could do. Tassan was just bearing down on that, going full speed, supersonic. So I feel for him. There's not a lot you can really do in that situation. So I guess they just have to focus on what comes next. Meanwhile, a lot of panic for the Buckeyes, nearly serving it up for Minnesota, but instead they'll be sitting back and Burgess will be giving away the mid-volt. Nice pass and nice goal. My first thought was like, I don't think that shot's going to go, but look at the heads-up play to adapt to the teammate.
You don't think that shot's going to go? Well, Taco, man, you need to start passing more then. That's all I got to say, because to me, if I'm Savvyax in that situation, I look at that and I'm instantly on cloud 9. I'm just thinking to myself, like, oh, this is bliss. I mean, the save was almost made. Don't get me wrong, that was a very good defensive effort there by Ohio State at the last moment trying to get in front of that ball. But I really don't think they had much of a chance of that one. Although this one, oh, that was a close call. Dassan had to come in front of it. They do have to forfeit possession off to the sidewall. What a dunker! Oh, off the post and the bar! And away here! Ohio State gets away with murder on that challenge.
And they're going to test the defense even more with a long ball. Stu deals it well. Dassan does not. Savvyax, gentle tap. Nebula's just waiting for it, but it's not a good angle. They can only get a 50. Kulis trying to keep it in the box, but Savvyax will not be able to back him up. Get some help from Burgess, the miss. Stu into the corner. You can almost feel Minnesota just licking their chops. They know it's so close. They just have to wait for one more opportunity, but Ohio State is just getting stronger and stronger and continuing to parry away all these chances.
Oh, I like that idea. The pass to the middle was there. There was no second player on the rotation. They opted to play back. The demolition attempt was also there. Oh my goodness! And now Burgess just forces their way through. It looked like it was Nebula's ball to have, but everything just goes completely awry. They just go right at it, and nobody is expecting on the Minnesota State side.
That's a tough thing. You have the first player challenging, and Dassan, I think, meant to flick that a bit higher, but at the end of the day, it held it in place, and that's all that really was needed for Ohio State. And Minnesota, they're on the goal line. They're thinking, can I challenge that? But I don't want to move out. And then everyone's kind of just in this mental no man's land where they don't really have a clean option, and ultimately a change-up shot is going to beat the entire defense. Under a minute to go. Minnesota is not wanting to go to Game 5, clearly, but at this point, I don't really know what they have to do. They have looked a bit neutered on offense lately.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I was just thinking the same thing, although I think in a strange turn of events, we've seen what has been a rather high-shooting game on both sides turn into a, well, rather low-shooting game on both sides. So you mentioned how at Minnesota State, they have hardly made an appearance, and I would agree. They've only got 3 shots, but Ohio State only sits at a meager 4. So it's a bit difficult to say that that Minnesota State isn't really showing up on offense when their opponents aren't really doing that either. And we'll save that one away, but it's just time wasting now As Ohio State pushes now into Game 5. There is no way they can make this one happen. Final second ticks away, and with a 2-goal lead, you can call it done. But Ohio State, they're not done yet. The Buckeyes want to have some more fun with this. They look for the flip reset. They will find it, but not inside the net. They're just having a good time out there, Taco, and that's really important.
Yeah, you can almost see the emotional shift in how they're playing. Dasan knows that game is done, and it would be so easy to just tap it down. Say, okay, next game, let's go, reverse sweep on the way. But then they keep it up, just say, no, I want one more. And that's just fun. I love that type of approach to the game. It's maybe not the most professional way to do it, but it's definitely showing that they feel like they can definitely take this series. And you mentioned low shooting game, but the flow of the game felt much more even. It wasn't Minnesota cramming the ball down the throats of the defense of Ohio State. It felt like Ohio State had the answer, had the counterpunch, and was able to actually generate opportunities. And even though they're not shooting all of them on target, when they need to, they're finishing. And that was completely absent in game 1 and 2.
Yeah, Ohio State has completely come online at this point. They have had significant changes to the strength of their defense, to the strength of their offense, to the strength of their players as an individual in the midfield. Playing that neutral game is absolutely key, and they have been dominating it where Minnesota State had all of the presence in games 1 and 2. So now game 5 here, only one team can walk away with a 2-0 record here. We'll have to decide by the end of this 5 minutes, pending any potential overtime, although, frankly, I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing that here, Taco, based on how these games have been going.
Well, I mean, it's certainly really all up in the air. I would have to say that at the current moment, I think Ohio State feels like the favorite to take it, even with them having to mount this reverse sweep and complete it all the way through for the next 5 minutes. But I don't think Minnesota is out of really contention. They still look good. I just think they're a little bit shocked by the newfound speed. If they can't figure out a way, I think, to win that neutral game in the midfield, to be able to consistently take these 50s and put them into interesting areas, I think that's really going to be the X factor. They nearly were able to generate one for Nebula, but he's not able to tuck it past the D.
I love that play from Minnesota as well. They tried to force the opposing player into making something happen, but Cools was ready just in case that did not occur. They had the follow prepared. They've managed to hold on to their possession until now. We push back across the midfield line. It looks like it's only a temporary arrangement, though. Savions chase downfield. That is a bad bounce there for Ohio State. They're going to have to play this one out to the corner. There are two blue players eagerly awaiting, and they are desperate to keep it in the zone. Burgess, complete breakaway now. Nobody home, and Ohio State will take the lead first.
And I like that goal, especially from Burgess, because this almost feels like the exact type of play that they gave up in an earlier game, in which it was just kind of a lofted ball. The other team just dunks it through and then has a breakaway into the near post double. And I love to see that the teams are almost echoing each other now, because this is the complete turnaround. That's the storyline, that is the play style differences, and right now Minnesota is getting a taste of their own medicine. And let me tell you, it doesn't seem like it tastes too well.
And it's one of those fruit-flavored medicines that nobody actually likes.
Fruit in quotes. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's like, it's cherry. It's like, no, it's not. How dare you?
Oh my goodness. But in any case, oh, that's a nice cut there by Nebula. They'll be blocked off, but it was a double commit. Hassan didn't recover in time, but there was no contact by Savionks. They'll keep it in the zone, but we've seen this act before. They're going to have to do something impactful and fast. A double commit here does not look good for them. Cools now left in a 2v1. Hassan, only one option to pass to the mid, and they will find it. Stu is there. What a play for Ohio State yet again.
What a setup from Dasan. They've turned provider for a lot of these games, but can you ask for a better setup if you're Stu? Dasan baits in a defender, and the defenders are frozen because they're too far behind the play to pre-jump it, but they have to react to the pass, and even I didn't expect him to be able to land underneath it and get a gentle jump to then tee it up. That's just beautiful. I love to see plays like that.
Yeah, I personally, speaking of plays, looked like Stu had lost a shootout there, but a little bit of a difficulty getting around that ball. I'll be honest, I was looking at that as well, and I can only imagine what the defender was thinking. I didn't expect Hassan to have that pass, and now a 1-2-3 coming out here. Burgess is just a little bit too far forward in relation to that pass to make something happen. But it certainly looks like they have shaken any sort of uncertainty. Is this one a direct pass to the middle now they're trying for? They almost found it, but the way they maneuver around the Minnesota State defense here just looks trivial. And what an effort there from this son. Forced to shut down that solo effort. So much pressure from just one player.
Again, it's the occasional moments, I feel like, in series, especially with Rocket League, where I know in my mind, like, the rational part of my brain is like, there's no hacks in this game. But it almost feels like Ohio State has turned on hacks. Everything is so clean. And then just just the cojones to just be like, yeah, this is still a close series, but I'm just going to try to double flip reset on him. My goodness, I love the confidence.
Just another day at the office is what it feels like. And they make me feel like this is what we should have seen from the very beginning. They're trying for another one here. Burgess is closed down. It's a decent defensive stand here for Minnesota State, but they need a heck of a lot more than that right now. Less than 90 seconds to go. And they trail in Game 5. Huge double commit here. So much to shoot at. Burgess cannot put it on target, though. And now Stu is beaten out to that ball. Fortunately, it is a bit of a giveaway. The demolition comes through, though. This should give them a chance at possession. This could be a major turning point. But again, they just tap it out. They have no plan with it, and it turns into a goal against. You cannot come up against a team like this with no plan. This is what happens.
Yeah, look how quickly the follow comes through. Burgess just try to bait in a player, try to get a fake. They know that if they shoot that fast enough and well enough on that near post, the defense is not going to expect it, and they're probably not going to get the save. And it's exactly what happened. They're following the plays. They're getting quick second man rotations through, and it's paying off. Minnesota just does not have a game plan right now. They look very panicked, and when they do get the pass, even then, it seems like it's a miscommunication. Third man cut in front, and that chance is going to go by the wayside. 50 seconds remaining. You really don't have that much more to do, and yeah, at this point, I think the coffin's in the ground. Not even a nail in it. Like, the coffin is just buried. Like, we're done here.
Not even a nail. They just dropped it in the ground. They knew it was over. But seriously,
push it in the hole.
But seriously, I mean, you look at that last passing play that Minnesota State had in the attacking half. Does that look anything like what we saw in Game 1? Let's think back now to what we saw in Minnesota State. Multiple times, you know, an excellent one-timer I'm thinking of in the midfield. It was Saviox taking the shot directly at the midfield line over on the sideline. It was a 1-2, basically end-to-end, and they perfectly sniped the bottom right corner. Versus what we just saw there a moment ago, Taco. It was just absolute chaos. Nobody had any plan. They were touching it to each other, but they weren't putting themselves in a better position. They were just kind of re-neutralizing the same situation 3 times in a row.
Yeah, there is an element of, I would say, several different types of adjustments a team has to make. There is inter-series, aka from one series to the next. There is inter-game, which is Game 1 to Game 2 to Game 3. And then there's intra-game. And I felt like there was not a lot of intra-game things where it's basically from start to end, how do you change? But inter-games, Minnesota felt like they had the exact same strategy, and the moment it was countered, they're like, let's just try more of what we were already doing. And that's not enough. You need to change things up. If OSU is playing real fast in the midfield, you got to counter by playing around that. If they're beating you to the ball, then you either need to play faster and play more concerted or play off the rebound, and I don't feel like that was ever made. So the scoreline went from fairly close and inefficient from OSU to then suddenly, oh, we're just getting a decent amount of chance and we're going to start burying them until you really can give us something to contend with.
Yep, and we talked about it at the opener, right? It felt like, oh yeah, you know, Ohio State, you know, they're getting some chances, but they're not putting it together. They're losing out in the neutral. They're having issues on defense, right? And those were like those were 3 big pieces of the puzzle that we talked about they absolutely had to fix. Otherwise, it was pretty much going to be a wash. And they basically checked them off one by one in Game 2, and then Game 3, they were like, yeah, I think we got it down now. And from there on, it hardly felt like a competition at times. I mean, Minnesota State here, even in this final game, it was 11 shots. Sorry, I was doing my math out loud there. It was 11 shots against the 2 for Minnesota State University. I don't really think you can overstate how important that kind of a change is. And of course, you know, that stat line alone doesn't really make a big difference. But you've talked about from Game 1 to Game 5, that is a pretty significant change.
It really is, and that's why I almost referenced in game, I believe 3 or 4, where it almost felt like I blacked out and we just completely switched teams and we were just watching completely different sides, because it wasn't even that the situation you often see in games in which, you know, teams are battling back and forth and you have to make sure that everything is going smoothly and make sure that you're countering. It feels like there's games in which a team is dominant, and then there's kind of the transition game of a reverse sweep where it's, oh, actually they're punching back. Oh, the defense doesn't look as frail. Oh, are they actually getting a goal or 2? But no, it was just kind of immediate flip on its head. Nope, this is just how it's going to be. And then Ohio State just kind of cruised through. So I have no idea what's about to happen in an interview as we're trying to get, but I'm fascinated to hear what is possibly going through the minds in games 1 and 2. And then what do you say? What do you say in game 3? Just like, oh, whoops, guys, it turns out controller was not plugged in. Suddenly, I guess we can play in this series.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned, Taco, how it looks like we were watching 2 completely different teams. I would say No, it doesn't feel like we were watching two different, completely different teams in Game 3. What it feels like, what it felt like to me, is that we were watching the same two teams, except they swapped accounts on Steam, and they just played like that. That's what it looked like out there. Think about it, right? Because we saw, like, Minnesota, it was like, yeah, they've got a really solid defense. They're punishing on some overcommittal issues that Ohio State are having. They're making good passing plays on the attacking side. And then on the other end, we saw the exact same thing happen. There were a couple of overcommittal issues for Minnesota State. They're having trouble getting out of the attacking half. Their passes weren't really coming together. And I was thinking to myself, like, this feels awfully similar. What changed? Like, Ohio State hit the post so many freaking times there in games 1 and 2, and then they just kind of like, oh, you know what? I feel like actually scoring now, and that's what they did. Ohio State, they score when they want.
They do score what they want. And it was kind of funny because I genuinely, at times, I mean, I did laugh, but also just, there were times where like a shot would go through and I don't know, you can't really see my camera. I'm just, they're like laughing to myself, like covering my face. I'm like, I can't understand how this is possibly still coming out, because after a bit, you have to think like, okay, I'm really going to focus on every single shot, and then just rush through. And then game number 2, there was a kickoff goal. It's rolling on target, and then they rush it on the near post, and then pitched out. It's just, it's crazy to see. It's really something I had no idea that was about to go down.
Yeah, and I think we're still trying to get the interviewee coming in here. I believe we're going to be having Stu, and so with that, we should mention, of course, that we do have the LLS hero of the game, and I gotta say, Taco, we're very excited to bring this to you guys. But I gotta say, Stu, in my eyes, has been just the guy during this series. So I should say, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is the global leader in the fight to end cancer. They're the world's largest nonprofit dedicated to fighting blood cancer, which is the leading cause of death for childhood cancer. So CSL has teamed up with LLS to raise awareness and support through the season with various initiatives. And this one, the LLS hero of the game, this time it is absolutely Stu. I cannot give it to anybody else more so. But Stu, welcome onto the show,
Hello.
sir. That was an emphatic performance. How do you feel?
I feel good that we were able to get the reverse sweep. I was a little worried after the first 2, but I think we were able to warm up enough after the first 2. The second game, we had so many shots just come off the crossbar and the post that it was tough, but I'm glad we were able to stay focused and be able to bring it back.
And you mentioned you had so many shots coming through, and it's important to really stay focused within the game. When we were actually trying to, I would say, speculate on how you do handle that as a team, is that something you just kind of laugh at, like it's almost comedic at a certain point, or do you guys try to fight off that tilt? Like, what's the conversation like after a game like that?
We were mostly laughing. It was, I tried to, as much as it was annoying, to say the least, it was good that we were able to laugh about it and stay focused and bring it back for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the bigger questions that we have is what do you think in that scenario? Of course, you're trying to laugh at it, you're trying to have fun, which is one of the better ways to get back into a match of Rocket League. But were there any particular points of the opponent rotation that you were trying to break down and really nail home? Because it seemed like yes, the answer would be because you guys really countered them on just about every front.
Yeah, I think the main thing that we tried to break down was they like to hit the ball away. So in the first 2 games, we tried to beat them to every ball, and that wasn't working. So we ended up just letting them hit the ball to us, and then we would control it on our side and take control of the game, really. And I think that's what let us pull through.
And so when you're looking forward in these different games going forward, because of course you have the kind of a round robin system within the NACE schedule, so you have to play all these teams in kind of individual division, and of course getting another victory like this helps you keep up your record. You're now 2-0. And looking around, is a game like this, I don't really know another way to say it, is just a wake-up call. I think you guys look very good, but that could have very nearly slipped away from you and hurt that game differential with those first 2 games. Do you feel like that was just you maybe not under-respecting the other team, but maybe just coming in a little bit cold and not being ready for that pace of play, and it took you a while to, as you said, warm up? Or are you just kind of matching and trying to adapt on the fly to these teams as they come through?
Yeah, I think it would be better to warm up a little earlier than we were going forward. But other than that, I think we were good with adapting to how they played. I think going down to a 2-0 is not something that we should be doing in the beginning of the series, but going forward, we'll try and adapt faster, I think.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, going down 2-0, definitely, probably not advisable. You know, if I had to say, or if I had to give one piece of advice, is to not lose games. But I mean, with that behind you now, obviously, you know, what can we expect from Ohio State now moving forward? Obviously, you guys are 2-0. What does the future look like?
Obviously, the hope is to go undefeated. We have a lot of drive to get better, and I think we can go far in this league. So I would stay on the lookout.
I certainly think you gave a lot of people to look at. I think in the first two games started a little cold, but obviously you were fully warmed up by the end. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Stu. Any shout-outs you want to give to anyone before we let you
go? Just my team, Berg and Desan. They did a good job today, staying focused and buckling down to get the reverse sweep.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure to watch, and you know, go celebrate however you will.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
There you go. Stu, one of the standout performers, personally for me, although I have to say, definitely a team effort.
Yeah, I think everyone was clicking at the end of that, and that's exactly what you need at this level. I think a lot of players say, oh, you got to watch out for this team. They have X player, and it's like, yeah, you're playing well, but you still need everyone to click. When you get to that highest level of Collegiate Rocket League, one player just cannot carry you. You need two supporting players, and when everyone is popping off, there is no really standout player for your team. That's even better, because then even if one player's having a bad day or a little off day, then you can produce results like this, where you get a reverse sweep and you get to really end your night on a positive note.
Yeah, and it's something we love to talk about all the time, Taco, is we have a lot of teams that compete at the highest levels of CRL, which are essentially just randoms, but they are greater than the sum of their parts. Names like UT Dallas, for instance, you know, Luby, Dalton, Ghost. They're not really particularly phenomenal as a separate, you know, group of three. You know, they're essentially just some ranked warriors who kind of got together, but they consistently compete against top-level teams. Ohio State seems like they are probably one of those teams. We noticed that in the OSU Beans as well, who are a sister team to them. So it was a great performance, and I look forward to seeing more out of them.